This is English for Specific Purposes, Level B1. We are your hosts. I'm Miss Tatia, and this is
Mr. Daryl. We are excited to be with you today because we have a lot of exciting and interesting topics to talk about. We're going to talk about business, sociology, psychology, tourism, and a few other topics as well.
So stay with us and keep on learning.
I'm excited to start.
ეს არის ინგლისური პროფესიული მიზნებისთვის. B1 დონე. მე თათია ვარ, თქვენი მასწავლებელი. ეს კი დერილია. დღევანდელი ჩვენი გაკვეთილის თემა ბიზნესია.
Let's begin.
Let's begin. So, Mr. Daryl, today we're going to talk about business, which is very, very interesting topic for a lot of people. Don't you agree?
I think the whole world goes round because of business and companies and all sorts of things like that.
Yes, and there are lots of international companies operating all over the world, and there are lots of people engaged in different companies. So, before we start the lesson, I think that we have to look at the agenda.
Very good idea. So, I think we'll start with an introduction first, then a look at the vocabulary, and our reading text of the day.
A very interesting one, as I know, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then we will revise grammar. This is present simple today. Then we'll summarize the lesson. And finally, everybody's favorite homework.
One of my favorite parts because I like to read the replies that we get from these lessons.
Yes, we really look forward to your homework. Mr. Daryl, as we're going to talk about business, I have a few questions to you. So, what are the typical departments in a company? Have you got any idea about it?
Yeah, there's quite a few, I would say. There's a sales department, there's probably a marketing department, and an HR department as well, and quite a few others, I'd say.
Yes, there are a lot of very, very important departments. But Mr. Daryl, have you got any idea what each one does?
I think we're going to find out in this lesson what each one does, but let me take a guess. The marketing department probably has something to do with promotion of the material or goods to be sold.
Yes, you are right, but I think that we both will learn a lot of interesting things about the structure of an organization. But before that, now let's learn the words. So the first word we have is production. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word for us?
Yes, this is the process of making the goods that are going to be sold. Production.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So, existing methods of production are expensive and inefficient.
Excellent. That's a good example of how to use the word in a sentence.
Yes. So, production in Georgian is წარმოება. Production, წარმოება. Now let's together. Production, წარმოება. Now let's move on to the new word, and this is finance. Mr. Daryl, have you got any idea what finance is?
I do. Finance is the amount of money that a company has to spend on its growth and future plans.
I totally agree with you. So the company's finances are in a mess, means that the company's finances are not in order.
Yeah, you don't want to be in a mess with your finances.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So finance, ფინანსები. Finance, ფინანსები. Let's say together. Finance, ფინანსები. And our next word is sales. So sales is the department which deals with selling the goods of the company.
Very good. And I think a sentence that you could use the word sales in would be, he is in sales and it is his job to make sure that the store looks good and is selling well.
Yes, sales in Georgian is გაყიდვები სამსახური. Sales, გაყიდვები სამსახური. So together, sales. And the next word is
Human resources. Now, Ms. Tatya, would you be able to tell us the definition of human resources?
So human resources is a department of an organization which deals with finding new employees, keeping records of those employees, and then helping them with any problems they have.
Sounds very, very important. Do you think a company would be able to do well without a HR department?
Of course, no, because good employees make a company. They make a company successful. Don't you agree?
And you need them to work well together, and that's the business of the HR department.
Yes, absolutely agree with you. So human resources in Georgian is ადამიანური რესურსები. Human resources, ადამიანური რესურსები. Say together.
Human resources.
And the next word is marketing. Very widely used word. Don't you agree with me?
It's a very popular word in business, and the definition of marketing is the sector of the company that promotes the product through media, maybe through television, through radio, through internet, through advertising, all sorts of ways to make the product successful.
Yes. So marketing, marketing. Marketing, marketing. Together?
Marketing.
Okay. And I think that it was the final words. And now it's time to practice these words, and let's see how well we remember. Mr. Daryl, let's look at the exercise. So there are definitions, and we have to match the words with the definitions. Now let's have a try. So the money that a person or company has, have you got any idea which word can match this definition?
Well, let me think back. There were several words we had in our vocabulary section. I would say that the answer is finance.
Oh, let me check. Yes, you're right. This is finance. So the money that a person or company has is called finance. Now let's try another one.
Ms. Tatya, what is the process of making or growing goods to be sold?
Yes, I think that I know the answer, and the answer is production. What do you think? Am I right?
I think you are right, Ms. Tatya.
Yes. Now the next one. Ms. Daryl, can you read the definition?
I'd be happy to. So the definition for our next question is the department of an organization that deals with finding new employees, keeping records about those employees, and helping them with any problems.
Oh yes, I remember that word for sure, because just we said that this is one of the most important departments,
we did.
And this is human resources, isn't it?
You are exactly correct. So we have 3 out of 3 so far.
Yes.
We are good on the definitions.
Yeah, I think so. Now let's move on. And the next definition is a job that involves encouraging people to buy a product or service. Mr. Daryl, can you help me with the word? I cannot quite decide which one is the right answer.
They're both very close, very similar, but in fact, the answer is marketing.
I think that you're right. And here is marketing. You're absolutely right. And there is the final definition, and the answer is quite clear, but let's repeat. So this is the department that sells a company's products, and this is sales, of course.
Very well done. And I hope our viewers also got them right. 5 out of 5 is great.
That's nice. Now, I think it's time for the next section. What is the next section, Mr. Daryl? Do you remember?
Yes, now we move on to the reading section, and we have vocabulary for the reading section, and we'll have a little intro as well for the reading.
Okay. ეხლა კი გადავიდეთ გაკვეთილის შემდეგ ნაწილზე, რომელიც წაკითხulis გააზრება.
Well, Ms. Tatya, I think we should focus on a few of the words that are in the text that we will need to better understand the text.
Yes, I agree with you. So let's look at the words, Mr. Daryl. So the first word we have is responsibility. So can you define the word responsibility, Mr. Daryl?
Yes, I can definitely try. So responsibility is when you try to deal with something that is your business to take care of.
Yes, absolutely right. And we have an example sentence. She takes her responsibilities as a teacher very seriously.
Oh, very important in the world of education.
Yes, I think that teachers should be responsible for what they are doing.
Then they serve the kids, the students better.
Yes, of course. Now let's look at the next word, and this is enterprise. Enterprise is a company or any organization that makes profit.
Very good. And an enterprise can be a big business or it can be a small startup business.
Yes, agree with you. And here we have an example. They run a family enterprise in their local town. So it means that they run a family company in their local town, isn't it? Am I right?
You are right. There's a few synonyms for that as well. Sometimes in America they call it a mom and pop shop.
Really? I've never heard of it.
A mom and pop shop when a father and a mother put a small business together. It could be a shop, it could be a grocery store, it could be something small in a village or in a small town. Yeah.
That's nice. So enterprise in Georgian is 사წარმო. Enterprise, 사წარმო. Let's together. Enterprise. So our next word is debt. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word for us?
A debt is when you have something that you owe someone else. Might be a bank, might be a friend, might be someone else. Something that you owe someone.
Yes, I agree with you. And it's very bad to be in debt. Yeah? And here we have an example. He managed to pay off his debts in 2 years. And that's a very good thing when you manage to pay off all your debts in such a short period of time.
You never want to be in debt, you're right.
Yeah. So debt in Georgian is bali saseschovaldebulleba. Debt. Bali saseschovaldebulleba. Let's together. Debt. And our next word is profitability.
It's a good word, very good word for the world of business. The profitability of something is the amount it is likely to be successful or to produce something for you. So how much is it able to produce for you?
And profitability in Georgian is 몸개비한ობა, 렌타벨ურობა. Profitability, 몸개비한ობა, 렌타벨ურობა. Profitability, 몸개비한ობა, 렌타벨ურობა. Can we move to another word?
Yes, we may.
Yes, and this is supplier. Mr. Gerald, can you define the word to us?
Supplier?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. A supplier is a business or a person that provides items needed by a company or a certain sector of the business world.
Yes, and usually companies have their own suppliers, right?
Mm-hmm. And something that's connected to this is transportation, the infrastructure. The better the infrastructure for transportation, the better your suppliers can work.
Yeah, totally agree with you. So supplier in Georgian is 몸წოდებელი. Supplier, 몸წოდებელი. Supplier, 몸წოდებელი. So let's say together, supplier. Okay, I think that we've finished with the words. Okay, Mr. Gerald, as we said, we are going to read a very interesting text about the structure of an organization and how they work. What do you think, Mr. Gerald? Which is the most important department in a company, in an organization?
Yeah, there's probably quite a few answers to that, and probably many of our viewers would have different answers to the question.
Yes.
But in my opinion, I would say maybe the HR department is the most important part, just because you need to keep the members of a company happy. What about yourself, Ms. Tatia?
Yes, I agree with you to a point, but I think that sales department is more important, because if you don't sell your product, then I don't think that the company is going to be successful or make any profit. So I think that sales department is more important than HR department. But I think that we need to know more about it, and that's why we need to read a text. The structure of an organization is the key to its success. It's important that individuals and teams understand their roles and responsibilities within the organization. The principle of clear structure applies to all companies, startups, small and medium enterprises, as well as multinationals. In a large organization, there are a number of departments working to ensure the company runs well. Managing the staff is a key function.
The Director of Human Resources is responsible for the running of the human resources team, making sure that they are delivering all their strategic and operational priorities for the company. The marketing department has the overall responsibility for growing revenue, increasing market share, and contributing to company growth and profitability.
So the finance department is another important part of the organization. The head of the finance department looks after the billing for customers and also collection of the debts and maintaining customer queries and making sure that customers are happy. It's important that we make sure that payments are coming in on time. It can impact payments we are making to our suppliers.
These are some examples of the roles in some of the departments in the company. There are many more, such as research and development and IT support, all working together to ensure the organization runs smoothly and successfully.
So I think that we've finished the text. Now we have to check how well we remember the information we read. And for this, we have the first statement. ახლა კი შევამოწმოთ როგორ გვახსოვს წაკითხული text. So, Mr. Daryl, let's read the statements and find out if the statements are true or false and see how well we remember it. So the first statement is, generally there are 3 main departments in an organization. Do you think that this is true or false, Mr. Daryl?
I do remember this sentence, and I think it is false.
False? Let's check. There are human resources, marketing, finance, and many more departments all working together to ensure the organization runs smoothly and successfully. So, based on the sentence, we can assume that this statement was false, and you are right. Now the next statement, and please read the statement and I'll try.
Okay, now it's your turn.
Okay.
Clever organizational structure is important only for startups. Is this true or false?
Oh, let me think. I think that it must be important for not only for startups, but for any company. So I think that this is false.
Let's see.
Now let's check.
The sentence is, the principle of clear structure applies to all companies, startups, small and medium-sized, as well as multinationals.
So I was right, and the statement is false.
Excellent.
Okay, now let's move on, and the statement is, the finance department monitors if the payments are coming in on time. What do you think, Mr. Daryl? Is this statement true or false?
I think it checks all of the proper definition for finance department, and I would say it's true.
Okay, let's check. So this is important that we make sure that the payments are coming in on time. It can impact on payments we are making to our suppliers. So the statement is true. I think that we've finished reading the text, we've checked how well we remembered it, and now it's time for grammar. Now let's look at the sentence from the text and let's try to analyze it. The head of the finance department looks after all the billing for the customers. Mr. Daryl, do you think that this sentence is about past, present, or future?
It's definitely about the present.
Yes, you're right. So, and what do you think? Is it a general truth or a regular action happening in present?
It looks like a general truth.
Yes, you're right. So, when we talk about actions happening in present, and when we talk about general truth, we generally use present simple. And that's the topic of our grammar today.
We're going to talk about the present simple. It's a bit of a revision for most of you, but we will go over it once more, and we'll add a little bit more to it than you might have encountered before. So we use the present simple to talk about something that is true in the present. Now, the best example of that might be the finance department is another important part of the organization. Secondly, we use the present simple to talk about something that happens regularly in the present. And a good example of that might be the sales team regularly collects information about the sales, something they do in a regular fashion. The third way that present simple is used is to describe something that is always true. Here's an example. The human body contains 206 bones. We also use the present simple to talk about a fourth thing, something that is fixed in the future. For example, the company launches a new product next week. It's fixed in that future, and we know it's going to happen. There's a fifth way to look at the present simple as well. It describes something in the future after certain time words such as when, after, before, as well as after these particular words, if and unless. Now, here's an example that will make it clear for you. I'll talk to the manager when I see him. Present simple. We can move on now. Let's look at the form of this particular tense. It's the present simple. We're going to look at the affirmative, the positive way of expressing it. When you use the pronouns I, you, we, and they, you add a verb that doesn't really change in its conjugation form. But when you use the pronouns he, she, and it, otherwise known as the third form, the verb does change. You add either an S or an ES to it when you conjugate the verb. So, for example, we always try to improve the products. Nothing changes. The head of the department checks his mail daily. Something did change there. We added an S. Let's move on to the next form, the interrogative form. We have to use an auxiliary verb, a helping verb, in other words, to the sentence. You'd have to have do plus you, we, or they, and then the verb. So here's an example to make it clearer for you. Do we always try to improve the products? See how we had to do that? Now, in the third form, we change the auxiliary verb from do to does. And so that means with he, she, and it, we use does. Here's an example to make it clear. Does the head of the department always check his mail? There you go, we have does. One more form, the negative form, again, present simple. When you have I, you, we, and they, you add the auxiliary verb do, and then not, and then the verb. So here's the example. I do not, or don't, buy new products. Now when you have he, she, and it, something changes. You might be able to guess what changes based on what we've spoken about before. The auxiliary verb changes from do to does, then you add the not, and then you add the verb. So the CEO of the company does not, or doesn't, report to the board of the directors.
ეხლა კი შევამოწმოთ როგორ შეგვიძლია ამ დროის სწორად გამოყენება. Let's look at the example sentences, right?
Very good. In our first example, we have a sentence, and you're going to have to put the correct form of the words in the brackets into the space provided. Look at our sentence. Something he meet clients at work. Now, Ms. Tatya, how would you fill this in?
Yes, this sentence is interrogative. It's a question. So as you told, I think we have to use auxiliary verb. But which one? I think that we have to use auxiliary verb does, as here we have third person singular he. So the question might be, does he meet clients at work? And I think that I'm right.
Perfect. That was well done.
Now let's look at the next sentence, and here it is. If she, then blank, and we have to put the verb in a correct form, him about the news, he will change his plans. So you talked about sentences with if, and you told that in if part we always use present simple. So I think the sentence will be, if she informs him about the news, he will change his plans. And I need here informs because again there is third person singular, she.
Perfect, Tatya. Here's another sentence. They, this time they, and then we have a space, not give the customers detailed information. Now, because the pronoun happens to be they, you're going to have to say it in the following way.
And don't forget that this is a negative sentence, Mr. Daryl.
Yeah, so it twists the story a little bit. Here we have, I would say, it should be, they don't give customers detailed information.
And you use auxiliary verb don't as it is plural form, and we know that with plural we use auxiliary verb do and not does. Okay, and here is the answer. They don't give the customers the detailed information, and you were right, Mr. Daryl. So let's summarize the lesson, Mr. Daryl. So what did we do during the lesson? Do you remember?
I do remember.
So how did we start?
We started with a look at the vocabulary, and then we moved on to reading. It was a long section, and then we did our grammar on present simple.
Yes, you're right, absolutely right. And I think now we've come to a very important part of the lesson. Okay, now it's time for our homework, and the homework is you have to write a paragraph describing the structure of one of the companies you know. And here is the model of the homework. Mr. Daryl, where can this be found uploaded?
It can definitely be found on the address you see on your screen right now.
გთხოვთ დავალება ეკრანზე მითითებულ მისამართზე გამოაგზავნოთ. ჩვენ მოუთმენლად ვველით თქვენგან მიღებულ საშინაო დავალებას.
Okay, I think that's been our first lesson today.
Yes.
It was fun for me to find out of a business in such a detailed and such an explanatory way.
Yes, I think that I've learned a lot from the text. So I think that we have to finish today's lesson, Daryl.
Yeah, it's been fun, and it's been fun learning about business with you, all the different vocabulary and the reading text that we had as well.
Yes, and we've learned lots of interesting things about how organizations work. But I think that it's time to say goodbye to the audience. Goodbye, see you next time.
Goodbye and see you next time.